Now, I've already hinted at this. And that question is realization of the Atma, of the Jiva, self-realization, the final step of spiritual progression, of our spiritual journey? And the answer is no. And I'm going to now expand on that and show you why. So in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 35, Krishna says the following. Possessing that knowledge, when he says that knowledge, he is referring to knowledge of the self. You shall not fall again into the mind's ignorance, O Pandava, for by this you shall see all existences without exception as situated in the self, and thereafter as situated in me. So, let me rephrase that again, or let me repeat it one more time. Possessing the knowledge of the self, the realization of yourself, you shall not fall again into the mind's ignorance. So once that buddhi has introverted and realized the soul, the mind will no longer take over with its ignorance. For by this process of acquiring this self-realization, you shall see all existences without exception as situated in the self. You will see that actually everything is pervaded by spirit, that all the living entities are actually in truth spirit. You will see the animals are actually a soul. You will see all human beings are actually souls. You will see that this is the real nature of all beings. And then there's a second step. He says, and thereafter you will see everything, everyone, all beings as situated in me, Krishna says. That once you have seen that all bodies are actually the souls, the next step is to see that all souls are actually God, or in God, part of God. So it seems to be that Krishna is denoting a two-step procedure. One is the effect or the status of realizing the individual spiritual nature of yourself and therefore other beings too, like you. Therefore realizing the jivas. And the next step is realizing what exists beyond the jiva. Let's say the father of the jiva, if we go back to that father-son relationship that was explained. And that is when Krishna says, and beyond seeing the soul of everything, you will see that all souls form part of me. Okay? Now, let's take this step even further. And let's ask then, now that we know it's a two-step process, what is the result of this first step called Atma realization? The Sanskrit term is Atma Anubhavam. To obtain the bhav, or the state of the soul. What happens to a person when they attain this self-realization? In chapter 18, verse 54, Krishna gives the answer. He says that when one has realized Brahman, the spiritual essence that pervades everything, when one is serene in the self, when one is calm because he is situated in the self, meaning he has transcended material conception, the mind-body complex, and is situated in the soul. He neither grieves nor desires. When one is equal to all beings, why would one be equal to all beings? Because we understand all beings as also being spiritual selves. Then one gets the supreme love and devotion to me. I'll repeat the verse one more time. When one has realized Brahman, when one, serene in the self, neither grieves nor desires, when one is equal to all beings, then one gets the supreme love and devotion to me. Krishna has clearly identified himself as the Purushottama, which means the supreme person, the supreme spiritual being, God himself, the Absolute, by chapter 18, verse 54. That is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. So he has already explicitly stated his own divinity. He has equated himself with the highest reality. And he has said that the souls, in chapter 15, are only a part of that reality. Now he is saying, once you come to the realization of yourself, when you are situated in yourself, then and only then, you get the supreme love and devotion to him. So there's a second experience to be had, a second journey, so to speak. The first journey is to discover our true selves, to answer that question, who am I? Not with information, but with realization. information we have been discussing today. Who you are, who I am, soul. And I've been discussing the soul. But that is only information. The point being raised by Krishna here is not how can I acquire that information. It is how can I acquire that realization. When you have acquired that realization of the soul, then something else happens to you, which shows that this is not the final realization or the ultimate realization, self-realization. He says, then you acquire love and devotion to me, supreme love and devotion to me. So at that point, we engage in a pure spiritual relationship from spirit to supreme spirit. And that relationship is love and devotion. Those are the two words that Krishna uses. Our soul has a loving relationship with God. And it is accessed and it is experienced and it is expressed when we finally come to our soul's constitutional position. When we escape our ahamkara, our ego, and our material conception of ourselves. When we escape and transcend this mind-body complex, then yes, we are able to express this through the soul's inherent nature. Now, this two-step process has sometimes been referred to in the following way. I'm going to explain it to you, okay? Self-realization is the pursuit of many world religions. For example, if we take something even like Buddhism, the idea of the self and nothing really beyond the self, especially not a godlike figure. But self-realization leads to an experience often referred to as nirvana. Nirvana essentially means a supreme peace, a param shanti meaning supreme peace. Now, supreme peace is very attractive and has inherent value to it. But supreme peace denotes one thing, and it says that essentially there are no longer any disturbances or grievances. There are no problems anymore. That is, in a sense, the definition of peace. It is the absence of something. Peace is the absence of problem, the absence of suffering. And that is very desirable, perfectly good. I'm not degrading that in any way whatsoever. But what Krishna speaks of is not the absence of something, it is the obtaining of something, the gain of something. And that gain is supreme love. So if I had to define, or when we choose to define as Sri Vaishnavas, as Bhakti Marga followers, the difference between self-realization and God realization, I would do it as follows. That self-realization, realizing one's soul, grants us this experience of nirvana. Because the afflictions of the material world, of our mind-body complex and all the suffering that results from it, are gone. We are now situated in the self which is inherently ananda, blissful, which is inherently eternal, so nothing can affect it. There is no longer any fear of death or anything other than death. And that is called the Mahashantam, this supreme peace. But God realization is to realize our constitutional position towards God, our relationship towards Him, something that exists beyond ourselves. And this is what Krishna is pushing us towards, and he states that the nature of this relationship is love and it is devotion. So if self-realization is nirvana, it is supreme peace, then God realization is prema, it is supreme love. Not only is it the absence of suffering or problem, it is the obtaining of divine, unconditional, loving relationship. And these are two different things. Okay? So, as today we are only speaking about the Atma, then essentially what I'm saying is that realization of the Atma is an intermediary step. It is not the end goal of Sri Vaishnavism. Okay? And the reason I stress this point is because there are many paths, many philosophies within Hinduism that would promote a different understanding. So for example, just as a very, very brief example, so that you can illustrates this point even clearer in your minds. There are some philosophies which believe soul equals God. If soul equals God, meaning there is nothing beyond the soul, then immediately in that philosophy, self-realization or soul realization is the final destination. There is nothing else beyond that. And so I'm not diving into the philosophy, but already there we see two different conceptualizations. And it all comes down to our interpretation or our understanding of the soul's constitutional position, identical to God or subservient to God. And as I have clearly stated today, it is subservient. And it being subservient means that therefore soul realization is not the end or the final stage of our spiritual journey, but it is nonetheless a great stage and a very desirable stage, if not ultimately desirable. Okay? Hope that's clear.